Okay, so this is my colour logbook, and this is a bit more matter of fact and quite less emotional than my sketchbooks. And again, it is a working book, and it's really useful. I mean, I think this bit particularly when colour mixing, this appeals to me. I think I've got two sides to my personality. I think I'm quite emotional, and I like to invest in the emotional aspects of my art. I definitely feel a connection there. But also I'm quite technical, so I like the technical side, and I really like the technical side. Like, I love mixing my own paints, so that's happened in this colour logbook, and I like the colour science behind it. Yeah, it's right up my street. So this is just stuck in here, and it's great because you can mix any colour you want from using and understanding how light works, because it's light science, it's physics really. So a lot of this is just manufacturers' swatches, and you think, oh, that's a bit boring, why put that in? But if you make your own paint, then you're quite interested in mixtures of pigments. So you could just mix a load of pigments, just loads of pigment up, and you could see what their properties were they translucent, semi-opaque, opaque, light fastness, so on and so forth. But obviously you're probably going to mix them at some stage, and what happens? Well, on a swatch it gives you a lot of an idea of what colour mixtures and what different pigments are doing. And it might be that a particular manufacturer has a colour that you really like, and you think, right, well, I want to make that, how do I make that? So it's really good, and a lot of them, they have a lot of information on the swatches, so they're really good to collect. It's a bit nerdy, isn't it? Collecting colour swatches. So and also you can make really high quality pigments yourself, whereas to buy them is, and especially if you're doing a lot of painting, it gets really expensive really quickly. You can make them and it's great fun, so I quite enjoy it. Obviously you can see what's going on here, and there's me swatching things and putting it in. This is from last year, but I really enjoyed this. This was great, and I numbered these so that one corresponds with one if you make it monochrome. So obviously we all know now that red actually looks darker if it's monochrome, and that's quite interesting when you set tones against each other. So I quite like that exercise. That was from last year, so that's gone in my book, as all these are, because I changed all these into monochromes, gave them a numbering. This is where this is really nerdy, I think. Why would you want to do this? But I quite enjoy this. This is some sort of OCD autistic nonsense, which I try and fight a lot of the time. I try and fight those urges, otherwise everything would be really odd. So I try to avoid that, but sometimes it comes in useful. Nerdy things come in useful sometimes. And there's Crumpus. Poor old Crumpus got run over by tourists last year. I'm filming this on the 1st of January 2022. But actually he got run over, so you can see why I don't really like the tourists very much. So he appears in a few things on here. So lots of colour charts, the cat. These are some of the watercolours that I make, and I haven't really sold any watercolours last year because I didn't make any to sell, basically. But if I do make them, they sell out fairly quickly, and I put them either into pans, or I put them into mussel shells or seashells that I collect from the beach, and people really like them, and they go quite quickly, and it's fun to make. And I put mica in them. I don't know if you can see this, but these are sort of they look like it's got tiny bits of glitter, but it's actually mica in it, and it's quite nice. So again, that's what's happening here. Lots of things going on here. I'll flip through this because it's a bit boring. Oh, this is my favourite colour chart, really. I think this is gold colours, which are really super expensive, but it's a hand-painted one. Hand-painted colour charts, oh, I love them. But what's really good about this is it gives you an awful lot of information, and you can really, see what's going on. Great. There you go. And look at this. I mean, it's got all the information. So if they're mixing something up, it tells you all the different pigments are used, so you can mix that up. But yeah, great. Love that. My favourite. So more swatching, obviously, a bit more of the colour charts. Again, this is quite interesting because I bought loads of acrylic paint last year, and some I had given as well. And I didn't like acrylic paint. I think that's when I started the course. I really didn't like acrylic paint. I'd used it when the kids were young because of the fumes and what have you, and I sort of really wanted to do oils. I said, "Oh no, you've got to use acrylic." Oh shit! So yeah, I got all this acrylic paint. Do you know, I've learned to love acrylic this year, mainly because I've collaged with it, and I sort of decided at the beginning of this semester that what I would do is, instead of trying to make the properties of acrylic match oil, I'd actually try to explore the capabilities of acrylic, and boy did I do that, and that was great. I've poured it, I've watered it down to its extreme, I've thickened it up, I've put sand in it, I've done, you name it, I've done it, and I've mixed it with oil, I've put it on top of oil, I've broken the rules as well, and that's been fantastic. I've set fire to it, I've burnt it. Great stuff. I really like it now. God, I wish I'd make it more environmentally friendly. I said that once I'd used my stock up, I would never buy it again. There is some new acrylic polymers coming up that are biodegradable. They're really expensive, they're in the States, so maybe when I've used my stock up, I'll be able to buy those. Living up, maybe not. Anyway, I also found out, because the next semester I was going to move and do more oils, that where I live, because I live basically, my studio, the back studio, not the one I'm in at the moment, but the back studio where I paint, is sort of below sea level, and it's really damp, and I have a dehydrator there, and try and keep it ventilated. But for canvas and for oils, that's death. And the more research I did about it, more despondent I got, more I realised that perhaps acrylics are maybe what I should be using. Anyway, so this is exploring all the acrylics that I had, and then I suppose it's getting more interesting now, because I'm trying to get my own palette. I'm trying to get my sea and both palette, and in fact what I did this year is I made up these colours from observation outside, and I put them into tubes, and so I actually you'll see that, I think, in some of the submissions, hopefully, that I've put them into tubes, and I've used those, and I've tried to use that limited palette through a lot of the painting work. I mean, I've gone off on printing and done some sunset colours as well, and I think I'm going to put those into painting, so I've got a bit more mixing to do. But anyway, I've obviously, it's nice if you mix a colour to be able to use it again. So this is when the OCD logical bit comes in, and you can write all these recipes down, which is great. And obviously I've labelled them. God, this is so OCD. And this is me talking about Mocha Hanger ink now, which was something new for me. It's not watercolour because it hasn't got gum arabic in it. It's just ground pigment really in water, and it uses essential oil, clove oil in particular, and I put some geranium oil in as well just to make it smell better, because clove oil's a bit strong. And you grind it down just as you would do watercolour pigment. You have to slake it first, and they leave it for 24 hours, which is what I did. Left it for 24 hours, slaked it, and then got it out, ground it down, put it back in, poured the water back over it with the essential oil, and you leave it there. And then when you want to use it, you literally pour the water off, and then there's ink. Well, of course that won't adhere to anything because it's got no binder, so it's very difficult. There is something to say that if you've got an unsized paper, it'll actually soak into the paper and stain the paper, or some pigments will, not all of them, but some will. But the Japanese overcame that by, when you use it, at the point of using it, so you're not storing it that way, you're storing it underwater, but at the point of using it, you mix rice paste in with it, and it works really well, and it's archival, I believe. Obviously the woodcut prints from 200 years ago are still pretty good, depending on the light fastness of the pigment. But yeah, great, really enjoyed making it. And the studio smells lovely. Maybe that's the way forward. So that's all about this, a lot of writing about that, and what I found. And some pigments, modern pigments, don't work well with this method because it's really hard to slake it, and I have to slake them in alcohol. which is not surprising because I mean the modern pigments are not what the Japanese used, and they have different qualities and they're really overpowering. So the modern magentas are horrendous things. You can see the electrical charge on them when you try to slate them, so they have to definitely go in alcohol. So that's all the writing about that, really. More of these sea colours, and these obviously are the pebble colours, as well as the sky and the sea, and there's browns and what have you. And what I did with this palette is I took some base pigments and then I made the entire palette out of those few base pigments, so that they've got some sort of colour connectivity together, and I think they harmonise really well because of that. And I put them in different sort of mixtures of acrylic, some with silicone oil so it'll float on top, and you know, obviously into the tubes, pretty standard, but I think it all comes together really well. So, and my both palette. This was the bit about, you know, I was going to put a rabbit skin size on this canvas that I bought from Phil, and then I found that, you know, all my paint's going to peel off because I have a damp studio. So that was a bit of research that I didn't want to hear, but there it is. That's it.